All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Wholesaling the Cool Way. I'm Jasper Cool here with my dad, Mark Cool. And on this show, we like to talk about our respective businesses, what's working, what's not working. And we're both wholesaling in North Carolina for those who are listening. So we typically like to kick off the show with some inspiration, books, podcasts, or anything else that we've learned or picked up from the past week that we enjoyed. So you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, once again, other than work, I've been dog focused this week. So I got a new puppy. So I've been doing more Monks of Newskeet and training videos than anything else, I think. Um, I met with my strategic coach program advisor this week, and that was good. We talked about hiring, which is top of mind for me right now. And, we're using Colby, which is a personality assessment to help with hiring. So we talked about that a little bit. And, it was good because strategic coach talks about during your week being mindful of what you're doing when you're doing it in your business. So they talk about a concept of this is probably in one of the books of focus days and buffer days. So a focus day would be a day when you're working in your unique ability or your most impactful activities that you can do for the business, your most highest leverage activities, and then buffer days would be the days when you're doing stuff that's catch up or uh, that's not maybe your ideal stuff, but stuff that needs to be done. Dan Sullivan calls it stuff. So I think this concept is in The Gap and the Gain, which is a Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy book. But yeah, so and Dan also will call it like if you're a performer or like an athlete or a performer, right, then your buffer days would be like your prep days or your drilling days or your rehearsal days, and then your focus days would be your performance days. So if you were
Uh-huh.
an athlete who's going to play a match or a game, or if you're a performer or something. So those are different ways to look at it. But the one cool thing that came out of my conversation this week for me was we were just talking about different things like um, the Peters principle is one thing, like how people rise to the level of their incompetence. And one of the things that happened for me this week was I let somebody go on our team, which we can touch on later. But uh, that was one thing, just noticing that like you can promote people up and then they at a certain point reach a level where they can't really go any farther based on their skills or their abilities or their personality type. And so then
Yeah.
what do you do? Like, do you go sideways? Do you bring them back down? Do you create a new job description, or do you let them go? So
Mhm.
that's an interesting thing. But the other thing that I like that came out of our conversation was I was having confusion about the distinction between buffer and focus activities, because some of my activities seem to be a little bit of both. Like if I'm doing sales, that's probably a focus activity because it's a highly revenue generating thing, highly leveraged thing. Um, but also when I'm being a visionary and like crunching numbers and making projections and figuring out how our business is going to grow, that to me feels like focus work. So um, the thing that we came up with for me to make it easier for me is whether I'm working on the business or in the business, which goes back to the E-Myth, and other books like that. E-Myth is a great book if you haven't read it, about just just that concept of working on your business rather than in your business. So
Yeah.
if you work in your business, then you can only grow so far, and then you're just going to be overwhelmed. And if you're working on your business and you bring in what Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach calls who's, people that can fill things and get stuff done, maybe even better than you can, then you can actually grow your business and work on your business.
Yeah.
So for me, the buffer days are the in the business, and the free days are on the business. I think that's the better way for me to look at it. So that was the biggest takeaway I had from that. But it
Nice.
just helped me to see it more clearly. And I might not be able to have an entire day right now that I'm focused day, or an entire day that's a buffer day. They might still blur together, but at least I know which activity, which area I'm working in, because I can identify on versus in, and
Mhm.
try and add more on the business and give away more in the business stuff, and that
Yeah.
makes it easier for me to think about. So yeah, that's what I have.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Sweet. Well, for me, this week I started a new book, and it's called The Algebra of Wealth. Let me get this dude's name. Forgot
I've
him.
heard of that one before.
interested. His name is Scott Galloway. So really enjoying that book so far. I'm about two chapters in, but yeah, I'm really liking that so far. His idea or his formula for achieving wealth is focus plus parentheses stoicism times multiplied by time multiplied by diversification. So that's his formula. So focus is being paramount, and then you couple that with stoicism, which is just remaining unchanged, essentially, not going too high or too
Detachment.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah, not chasing the shiny object in terms of investments or new businesses or whatever, but just staying even keel. And then, of course, time. Everyone knows that most people get wealthy over a long period of time consistently, and then diversification. So that's his formula. And really enjoying that book so far, and also inspired by him because I signed up for his newsletter too because he talked about it in the book, and he grew that to 500,000 people relatively quickly.
Wow.
And he talked about just his journey with it and how he was starting a new business. He has like a big media company, that's his main business, and his team was just like brainstorming ways that they can get the word out about their business. And they were like, "We should start a blog." He was like, "Oh, fun," and he really didn't want to do it. And but he was like, all right, well, I'll just try it. And so he did his first blog post and they got a lot of good feedback. And then he did his next blog post and they were growing, but he was like 3, 4 weeks in, he was just writing it once a week on Thursdays and they would send it out on Friday morning. And he was like 3, 4 weeks in, he was just like sitting down on a Thursday night. And he was like, what am I doing? Because he just, for him, he's the type of person that rebels against routines and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
he was like, now I don't want to do this anymore because it's become a routine and it's like something I have to do. And he's like, I don't want to do it anymore. But he got past that and he had a mindset shift where he's just like, no, on Thursday evening, like I sit down and like I write this thing because I'm a writer and that's what I do. And so he just like changed it to become a habit rather than something he has to consciously like decide to do. And so now every night he sits down with his dog and a glass of wine and writes his thing on Thursdays. And now he's been doing
Nice.
it for whatever, 5 or 10 years, and they're crushing it. But that was inspiring for me to hear, and I'm enjoying the book so far too. And then other than that, this week I didn't really listen to many podcasts or anything, but the Olympic qualifiers started this week. I think the Olympics start next week, and so that's always fun for me. My favorite events are the track events, and so I watched a bunch of those, and that was really cool just to see some of the familiar faces that are still crushing in track, even though they're like old by Olympic standards. Like these people are in their
Yeah, in their
30s.
30s. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in their like mid 30s and they're still beating everyone. So I'm really impressed with those people, women and men. I watched actually probably more women's events than men. But yeah, that was really fun. Always inspiring to just see, just same thing that we're talking about, like with wealth. The Olympic athletes embody that with just putting in the time and just being in it for the long run. Like these people train 4 years just to shave off 10 or 0.10 of a second, tenth of a
Yeah.
second. It's just like crazy, crazy dedication. It's kind of similar to like Warren Buffett, where he's like I think he invests like once every few years. Like he takes on a big investment once every few years. But when he does that, it's like a huge difference in his net worth or whatever, because he's so good at what he does now. So, but yeah, it's always fun for me to watch the Olympics. But I think that's pretty much it for this week.
Awesome. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah. So next we typically jump into business check-in, which is checking in about our KPIs from the past week, wins and losses, what's working, what's not working. So you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah. My big milestone this week is that I let a team member go, which was very challenging for me. This was a person who'd been with us since the beginning, and it just was like a not a right fit type of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it felt like it was a necessary move for us to continue to grow, but it wasn't easy. And as you know, Jasper, I've been, you know, it wasn't a short process to come to the
Yeah.
decision. But anyway, I think our team is still good. It gives us an opportunity to bring in somebody new to um, manage some of the same areas that this person was managing, but maybe some different areas, and just have maybe a different skill profile uh, to help us grow. So anyway, that was a huge milestone. And it does affect the team when you have somebody who's been with you for a long time and then they're not there anymore, and everybody wonders if their job is secure and, what's happening. Are we cleaning house or,
Yeah.
things are changing. So there's some damage control to do and stuff like that. But that was the big thing this week, or a big thing this week that happened in my business. Yeah, I think I already talked about. I met with my strategic coach advisor on the heels of that. That was good. And then, yeah, we're working on hiring for a couple of different positions. So it's a project. Hiring is the deeper I've gotten into the business and the less I do working in the business, as I just mentioned, the more hiring has fallen to my plate. So I don't know, how long I'll want that to continue to be a thing that I do, because it's a project. Every time you hire somebody, it's a lot of resumes, it's interviews,
Yeah.
it's, and if you do choose to bring somebody on, then there's like a trial period. There's even the onboarding process. It's like getting people set up with all the stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's been part of what I've been doing this week, is that whole dynamic. But it's also exciting because I get to bring new people into the business that are going to help us grow. So that's fun. And it is kind of fun to look at resumes and look at people's like video introductions and things like that, and see if I think somebody's going to be a fit for our company. So
Yeah.
working on that. Let's see. This is our first week without the cold caller. We paused the cold caller because we've had too many leads in our acquisitions, and we haven't been able to keep up with everything between a cold caller and our SMS campaigns. And then Jasper, you've been sharing your land leads with us, which we've been following up on too. So it's just been a
Yeah.
lot of leads. And on that note, we have one closing next week. That's one of the leads that you pushed to us, Jasper. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's in where is it? I think it's in the Sanford area, maybe.
Nice.
But yeah, we have one buyer that's closing two properties in that same development, and one of them is one that you sent to us and we locked down. So
Sweet.
it looks like it's on track to close on time next week. So
That's great.
yeah. So yeah, and on the closings note, the victory is that I think this is our 6th week in a row that we've had at least one closing. So that's great, because we had a drought where we had 0 closings in May, I think. No, April. Sorry, we had 0 closings. We had 0 closings for about 4 weeks, maybe 5, and it was really scary because we've never had a drought that long. And then now we've had at least one closing for 6 weeks in a row. So we closed one this past week, and that was a piece of land that we closed this week.
Hmm.
I think it was maybe Harnett County. No, I think it was Cumberland County in North Carolina, and I think we made like 11K on it, which is pretty good for a piece of land, just a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Um, and our minimum that we want to make is at least 8 on a piece of land, or we just don't want to do it. So I'll just briefly, I made some notes about that one, so I'll just briefly break it down, because sometimes our listeners like that. This one was from a direct mail campaign, so it was probably our last direct mail campaign that we did, because we've stopped doing direct mail and we're just doing SMS and cold callers. So the campaign was launched in March of this year. The lead came in April, about a month later, maybe 5 weeks, it looks like. And then we got the contract a week after the lead came in. So we made him an offer right away. We went back and forth and we locked it down pretty quickly. And then we got the contract on April 25th, and we sold that on May 6th. So we sold it in about 2 weeks to one of our VIP buyers, just by direct outreach to the buyer. That's one of the things that we've done that's a real bonus of building a buyer list. Is we get a property in a certain area, we have a handful of people that we just text and be like, hey, would you be interested in this? And that's a really nice thing to have. So this guy was just like, yeah, it sounds great, let me go out and look at it. And he put down his deposit the next day, and then he was ready to close within 2 weeks on that. This one was a situation where we had 5 signers, 5 heirs, and so as you know, Jasper, those can be a little bit, they can be delayed. So the heirs are all very cooperative and helpful, but there was an estate file that was missing, and so our attorney had to reach out to the county to get an estate file, and they do it like by snail mail, because some counties are just old school. So
Hmm.
that ended up delaying us by a couple of weeks, and then the buyer went on vacation, and we ended up finally closing it 6/19 this past week. So contracted April 25th, sold May 6th, and closed June 19th. So that closed about 6 weeks after it
Nice.
was sold, and it closed, a little less than 2 months after the contract, but so we got the lead came in on April 19th and it closed on June 19th. So 2 months from the time the lead came in, but then 3 months from the time the campaign was launched. So yeah, I just wanted to break that down a little bit because I know sometimes our listeners like to hear some of the detail on these.
Yeah.
Let's see what else I've got. I made a few notes, so I'm looking down at my yellow pad. We closed one. We got how many contracts we get? We got 3 contracts this week, all vacant land. We've been focusing back on vacant land because we have at least half a dozen houses in our dispo list right now that have had some challenges and stuff. We want to just get some land in there because my team's really good at that because that's where we started. So we were like, okay, we're going to do primarily land campaigns and get a bunch of stuff closed and build our war chest back up because we bought a few properties lately, and then we'll branch back out. But funny thing is that piece of land that we just closed, that was from a house campaign. It was a piece of land that came in on a house campaign, so that's funny. But yeah, 3 contracts this week, which is great. And one of the contracts was 2 lots side by side, so it's 4 properties, 3 contracts.
Sweet.
Uh, 2 side by side lots are always nice when you're doing vacant land because often that's more appealing to a builder if they can get 2 lots next to each other because they can build 2 buildings and like everything's all in one place rather than building 2 things across town from each other. They can have the
Yeah.
clearing done at the same time, the grading done at the same time. The framers can be there, whatever. It all can happen. And that saves them money and helps them profit more. So those are good deals to get. And then we had to buy a piece of land this week. It's the same deal, Jasper. I mentioned that we're working on one of your leads. One of the lots in that subdivision, they were both supposed to close this week, and there was a delay on the one that we got from your lead, Jasper. For I can't remember the delay right now. It's air affidavits. It's the same thing. It's the guy
Oh
has
yeah.
couple signers, and then there's affidavits that have to be sent out and all that stuff. So some of his people are in Chicago and New York that are signing the affidavits. So, and they're busy, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the closing got pushed a week while they get all that stuff done. So we're closing both these lots next week, but our seller for the one lot that we got under contract ourselves from our marketing really wanted to close this week. And so we ended up buying this property so to fulfill our commitment to them. So that means the property costs us more money and our profit is less because we have to do what's called an ABBC closing. A lot of people know what that is, but if you're new, we're buying the property, we're the seller is the A, we're the B, and then we're selling the property to the end buyer. So that we're the B in that transaction, they're the C. So the lawyers call it ABBC. And so that costs us $1,000 or so to buy it from the seller. And then, we don't get that money back because there's another $1,000 to close the next one, that the buyer's already paying. So, or 1,500, whatever it ends up being. So a little less profit, but it feels good to do the right thing for the seller and to keep our word with them. So
Yeah.
that, and other than that, challenges, we have some houses that we're having some challenges with. We have one house that I got a $5,000 price reduction on, which wasn't very, very substantial, but it was all the sellers willing to budge. And then I went back to our friend, we were talking about last week, CP are his initials, and he was not willing to budge even with 5,000, So that was funny because he made an offer. I was like, we can't do that. I went back and got the best I could. And I was like, okay, I was going to just not make much profit on it and just get it done for the seller and make a few grand on it. But he's not budging because I told him no, and I think he's mad. So because I was like, we can't go any lower than this. And he was like, I can't go any higher than this. And I was like, okay, well, we'll talk later then if anything changes. And then whatever. So then we've had a couple other buyers on that. I guess the one challenge with that is one of our VIPs said he would take it initially at our asking price. And then after they did their walkthrough, it was like, oh no, we can't do it. And they'd signed the contract and put their EMD in, and then they changed their minds. So
Yeah.
now we've been scrambling and I've had to get a price reduction, and the seller's not happy because he didn't want to go down in the price and blah, blah, blah. But it's a house was fully gutted, and then it's half done as far as the remodeling. Bunch of some of the rooms are down to the studs. Some of the rooms have new sheetrock. There's flooring lying around. There's sheetrock lying around. There are windows lying around. Most of the windows have been replaced. It's that kind of a job. So it's kind of an interesting one.
Yeah.
But so that's a challenge. I don't know, what the solution to that is other than keep trying to reach out to a few more buyers and hope somebody locks it down.
Yeah.
And then we have another one where we had an agent this week that said she was going to buy our property, and this one, it's a dicey one. I mean, this is the thing between working on houses versus working on land, right? I've got a seller who has moved out of this house. It's move-in ready, so it's one of those ones that's in the gray area. We've got it priced too high for it to be really good for a flipper, but it would be great for a buy and hold investor, or a landlord, or an owner occupant, because the woman was living there. It's fine. It's not, it needs minor stuff, but it's maybe a little outdated. But she's moved out, and now she's paying, this is her first month of paying 2 mortgages, and she's stressed out, and we're trying to get it done for her. But like I said, we've gotten negative feedback from flippers, and we haven't found the right buy and hold or individual buyer for it. So it's kind of in limbo. And then I had an agent come in this week, and they were going to do an owner finance with us, and like come in and put a big chunk down, and I could cash out the seller, and then I had the seller agree to do subject to on her loan with us. So we were going to like cash her out, do owner financing with the next people subject to. Like I had this whole thing arranged, and then the real estate agent bailed, or she's just ghosted me. So I don't know what's going on with that. So that was frustrating when people ghost, when they say, yeah, we're there, we're in, we talked about all the numbers and how it's going to work, and simultaneous closing with her buyer and all this stuff. And now it's just crickets. So nothing you can do about that except move on to the next person, right? Call her, text her, email her. If she's not going to respond, then what can I do? And then we have the one that we bought subject to, and now it's been vacant a couple of months. And I think we talked about this on another pod, but the Zillow just keeps dropping that Zestimate. Like when we when we took it over, we were like, oh, cool, this thing, there are comps to validate it selling for around 2, and we're in it for like 145. So we were pretty excited. and then the Zestimate dropped from 200 to 190, and then we dropped ours to be around there because everybody looks at that, and then we dropped it again. So we're at like 169 now, and the Zestimate just dropped to 162. So I'm like, what is going on? They went from 200 to 190 to 180 to 170. Now they're at 162. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? So I can't go by the Zestimate anymore. I just have to give people my comps and be like, this thing's worth at least 180. We've got it at 170. Let's go. But that's a challenge. And then I have one more deal with tenants who moved out and vandalized the property, and we haven't sent anybody back over there to see if the vandalism is worse, but I'm kind of dreading that. So that's a challenge. Kind of dreading finding out that maybe they did more to the property than they had already done with breaking windows and stuff. But that's why we're in discussion about not doing any more properties with tenants and just doing vacant properties.
Yeah.
And you, Jasper, you shared your buy box with me this last week, and that was great and inspiring to me. So I definitely want to work on our buy box for both land and houses, just so we know what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to, and we have more clarity on that, so that we can move through leads more quickly and focus our energy on the things we actually want to do that are going to work for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I've got. I'm open to any feedback if you got it. If not, we can switch over and check in about your business. And we're going to do we'll do the Q&A at the end. We did have some comments on the YouTube channel about some SMS stuff, and we'll check in about that after Jasper's business check-in. See if we can answer some questions there.
Yeah. Cool. Or is there anything you want direct feedback on, or you want to just move on?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff I checked in about, I mean, it's not really, it's kind of like we talk about with, they're just basic challenges that you have every week in and week out with wholesaling. So I don't think there's any specific on the house that, maybe we got for too high of a price, or the one. Yeah. Basically, we've got overpriced things for flippers, and we were hoping we could sell them to buy and hold investors. And it seems to be more challenging to connect with landlord type buy and hold people than it is to connect with flippers on Facebook groups or other places. We have been using investor base to reach out to buy and hold investors, and that has helped. We found some more of those people, but Yeah, I guess that's our challenge. Our biggest challenge is like creating a pool of buy and hold slash landlord investors, and then also connecting with those people that would be an individual buyer that'd be interested in that property. Because I'm sure somebody would with owner financing available. But
Hmm.
like I've done Craigslist. Um, I don't think we've taken advantage of the Hispanic buyer group that you sent me. I did forward that to my dispo team, but I don't think they've jumped into that yet. But I think that's another avenue to find individual buyers. I guess, just for people who are listening, it's there's a zone, right? Like there's a flipper zone where they want the thing at rock bottom, so they have cushion and margin for error and the cost of their renovations built in there because they're taking risk and more risk in today's market because of interest rates, the market moving slower. So if you're not at that price for flippers, then you have to either get your seller to lower their price, or you have to sell it to somebody who's either an individual buyer who's happy to move in there below market but higher than a flipper price, or a landlord who's happy to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
that's our challenge. So if you have any feedback on that, Jasper, that we haven't covered previously, I'm open to that. Otherwise, we can move on.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it'll be helpful, but I mean, for me, I underwrite all the deals to try to make them work for flippers because I found the same thing. There's very few buyers that buy like just for buy and holds, especially these days with interest rates being so high. So
Yeah,
for me, most of those people have just totally disappeared, and
yeah,
so I've just had to kind of adjust. But yeah, we underwrite all the deals for flippers. And like we've talked about with tenants, like sometimes I'll get a deal that looks like it makes sense on paper to me that like has a tenant in it because it beats the 1% rule or whatever. And I'll try to sell it and it's just crickets. So it just seems like, at least right now in the market, those people are very few and far between. So I know it's not very helpful or encouraging, but that's just what I
no, it's
found.
good to hear your experience too, because you do more houses than I do, and you have been doing it for
Yeah.
you know, focused on houses while I was focusing on land. So
Yeah.
good to hear the feedback.
But yeah, I mean, even in the past, like that's why I think that was like there was kind of a gold rush in the 2020 to maybe 2022 like range because a lot of hedge funds were buying those properties that were tenant occupied and stuff. And I sold a few to hedge funds. I didn't do as many as a lot of people did, but that was the only experience I've had where people actually want to buy like with tenants or like will pay more than flippers because they're planning to hold it for long term. Like that was the only experience I've had with people actually paying whatever 90% of ARV. But yeah, since then, since the hedge fund stopped buying, I haven't found like any individual that's really doing the same thing. Like there's not a Chris that I've found on the opposite spectrum who's just buying and holding. Like
Yeah,
I know a lot of people that are similar to Chris, they're flipping a lot, but I haven't found those people that are just buying and holding constantly, so it's been difficult.
but they are on investor base when you go on there. Like they have flippers, and then they have buy and hold investors, and you look at the buy and hold investor, and they have 15 properties, 20 properties, 30 properties. Those people are there. You can scrape them on PropStream and find those people. But I guess, people with that many properties, maybe their buy box is really tight, and they're just like, they look
Yeah,
at it quickly and they're just like, oh, no, that's not for me. They know exactly what they're doing and where they're buying. Because we're not
yeah,
even at 90% of ARV on a couple of these. We're just above the flipper. Well, maybe not just above, but I mean, not too bad. We're below nine. It's 70 or 80% of ARV, which should be good if you're a landlord and the place is move-in ready, in my mind.
yeah,
But like you said, it's not really. It's you got to really beat the bushes to find these people.
yeah. It's tough for sure.
But yeah, thanks for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Ooh. All right, well, I'll run through mine, then we can get to the comments at the end.
Okay.
So for this week, let's see. We got 138 leads, made 107 offers. We got 3 contracts, sold two
Nice.
properties, and closed one. Thank you. I would love to ring my bell for you, but not just sound asleep, so I'll try to not do that.
Three
But
contracts and two sold.
yeah, the little one is nice. Mine is like brass and it's very loud. But yeah, it's a good one.
Good
All
size.
right. Yeah, for anyone listening, did you get that on Amazon?
Derek got me this because I had a smaller one than this, and
Okay.
so this one is like, how big is this next to my hand? It's like half my hand or a third of my hand.
I think that's a good size. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not too loud, but it's also gives you a nice sound. So that's
yeah.
good. Yeah. Yeah. For anyone listening, it's really fun to get yourself a victory bell and you can ring it anytime you get a contract, just sell a deal, close a deal. It's fun. I
And it's
first,
fun at the team meeting too, to like
yeah.
people check in about on my team. People check in like, we got 3 contracts this week. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sold to ding ding. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I first heard that from Tom Kroll. For anyone listening, he started Wholesaling Inc. and now Brent Daniels runs it. But it's a good podcast for anyone who's looking for more real estate podcasts. But yeah, so those are my numbers for this week. 3 contracts, 2 sold, 1 closed, and then the leads and offers I mentioned. I also noticed just looking on my calendar, I have my calendar linked up to my Podio. And so it populates every time I get a new offer. So I might start tracking this in my KPIs as well. But I'm just noticing we did get a lot of offers this week in terms of dispo, which is a good sign. We
Yeah,
only sold 2 deals, like I mentioned, but we're getting a lot of activity, which is a good sign.
deals is great for a week.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah, 0 sales this week. We've got like 20 properties in dispo.
that's okay. We're getting ready for a really big week.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that's the KPIs this week for the victories. Those things are victories as well. But we also got another 5-star review this week,
nice.
and yeah, thank you. And another victory for me, kind of similar to you. We were pretty much over capacity in terms of lead flow, and so I shut down PPC this week. Feels like a victory for me because that was something where I gave it some runway, and I'm not giving up on it entirely, but it just by far the worst channel, and we're doing really, really well with text and cold calling right now. So I just feel like it's better to double down. Some of the gurus like preach you want to have 50 marketing channels and just do everything. I think that's kind of silly. And so I've been leaning more back towards what Matt teaches and what those people I mentioned, Brent Daniels and Tom Kroll, they teach the sniper approach, get really good at one marketing channel, and then you add on another one, maybe. And Alex Hormozy says the same thing. He's just like, instead of adding on new, I think he says like more, better, new. So do more of what's working, do it better. And then if that's at capacity, then you add on something new. So
Mhm.
I think I might have made a mistake with the PPC. I did thankfully close deals and make an ROI from it. So I'm not in the red. But I figured let's just quit while I'm ahead and let's just stop it because the leads that we're getting is just like they're just horrible. We're getting leads in like Ohio and California and Tennessee, and then the leads we're getting in North Carolina are just literally like touching Tennessee, touching Virginia, like just the smallest towns you've ever heard of. 0 comps. Like we're talking about buy box. These are just not even close to a buy box that I would want to buy. So it's just like I'm just like, why am I spending so much money on these? Leads are like $200 a lead. So I'm like, I'm done with this. But anyways, that was a long-winded answer, but that was a victory for me to shut that down. And
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not,
it's good.
I'm
I think it's good detail for people to know because this is not your first foray into PPC, and you didn't have great luck with the other company you went in either. Like, it's kind of a nail biting situation, and the quality of leads have been, you know, both times you've done it, not great quality of leads. And like you were even wondering if you're going to break even or not. So I
yeah,
think if you're going into PPC, you have to go in gangbusters and you have to be willing to spend a lot of money and weed through and dial it in. And that might be what, a 6 month to 1 year process to really get it where you need it to be. And you're going to spend some money to get there from
yeah,
just from watching you, I would say.
yeah, yeah. And it's
So
also it's something that I do want to revisit in the future. I think it's something that I will learn myself instead of delegating because then I'm in control of the campaign and I can dial it exactly how I want. Because when you talk to these PPC companies, they want you to go nationwide and they want you to go very broad. And the reason why is because it's cheaper for them, it's easier for them to manage, and they just want to take your money. And I'm not saying they're all like that, but I've talked to a lot of people before I signed up with this company, and the company was good. Their customer service is great, all that stuff. But they were the only company that would like let me only do North Carolina. Everyone else was like, no, that's too narrow. Like doing a full state, they're like, no, that's too narrow. We have to go really broad for PPC, and like that's how Google works and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that because I know Alex Hormozy runs a lot of Facebook and Google ads, and they're very niche down and very targeted. So I'm like, clearly it can be done. You guys just don't want to do it. So in the future, I want to learn it myself, and I do want to do that. But one thing I learned from doing it and then from listening to Matt on our weekly calls and stuff is just like it's a totally different business. And so our business right now is optimized for cold call and SMS, which is a lot of follow up, a lot of lead flow coming in, but you got to kind of filter through. They're not all hot leads, and it takes a lot of follow up and it takes a long time to close some of these deals. With PPC, it's like completely different where the lead comes in. You want to get them on the phone as quickly as possible, or else they're going to fill out 20 other forms for other investors, and then you're competing against 30 other people. So it's like it's just a totally different model, and it didn't feel like right to me to have all these SMS and cold call leads coming in, but then as soon as a PPC lead comes in, I'm expecting my team to drop everything they're doing, call them 20 times in a row, try to get them on the phone, and just like it just I either need to do one or the other, I think, for at least right now, the stage that my team is in. So anyways, that's kind of my thoughts on it and everything. I'm not giving up entirely because I did hear about recently a pay per lead company. I think I'm going to try them out. And I like that as opposed to doing PPC because you can just choose the counties you want and you're only going to get leads in that county and you just pay per lead. And then you can also dispute those leads. When you're doing it yourself, you can't dispute a lead. Once the lead's in, the lead's in. You already paid for it. With them, if you get a lead that's in the middle of nowhere, that's a piece of vacant land or a mobile home, or it's listed on the market, you can dispute it and they'll give you a refund. And so I tried that in the past, you were speaking of that, and that company wasn't the best, but this one I've heard a lot of people say they're good. So I'm going to probably try them out. Because the one thing I will say, the one thing that I really liked about PPC is that our cash conversion cycle on average, we only closed 4 deals, but our cash conversion cycle was 30 days, which is awesome. And so that's the one thing that I do like about it because cold call and text are both over 100 days. And what that means for anyone listening is that when we spend $1 on SMS, it takes us over 100 days to close a deal from that initial marketing campaign that we spend money on. Whereas PPC, it was 32 days was our average. And so you can see what that can do for your business when you're closing a deal in 1/3 of the time, then you can rapidly grow even faster. So that's the one thing. That's why it is something I want to go back to in the future. But right now, especially where we're at in this year and being behind on my goals, I just want to double down on what's working and not start something new right now. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at, just in case anyone's thinking about listening or jumping into PPC. That's kind of my thoughts on it. It definitely does work, but like you said, you have to spend a lot of money, you have to learn the ins and outs of it, and you have to be on the ball. As soon as these leads come in, you got to call them, or they're gonna sign with someone else. And even if you do call them first, they've still submitted that form 20 other times. So you have to beat all these other offers or build a tremendous rapport that you can get the deal. That's another thing I noticed, which is frustrating. So yeah, that's that. I'll do a breakdown of this deal we did close because it's very exciting. Because this was actually our first contract of 2024. We're just closing it on June 20th. So that is insane. I think that's like probably top 5 for longest deals that I've had. I had another one this year closed from like October last year, so that was a little bit longer. And I've had a few crazy ones that were like over a year long. But anyways, this was like a 6-monther, and we contracted this deal from SMS. So I'll break down this history in case anyone is interested. We launched a campaign in September of 23. We got this lead come in September of 23. So it came in the same day that we launched the campaign, actually, SMS campaign again. And then we followed up and contracted in January. So September to January, about 4 months, we followed up with her and then we got her under contract. And then unfortunately, her daughter was staying in the property and wasn't paying her rent. It kind of was honestly like holding her hostage. I kind of felt bad for the seller because like the daughter wouldn't move, but she also wouldn't pay her. So it was just like a major fail. And like I tried to work with her, and she was such a nice lady that she just would not kick her daughter out. And she's just like, no, like we have to wait until June because she was in school locally, and she was like, she can't move because she's in school, and so we have to wait till June to close. And I'm like, well, we can close earlier, and we can like try to find her a new place after we close, and it won't be your headache anymore. Or we can close like a month before and allow her that extra month so that at least you get paid sooner. And for some reason, she just was not trying to do it. But to her credit, like I've had a lot of deals that we have locked up with these extended timelines. And I would say almost 50% sellers just completely ghost us, probably sign with someone else and just totally ditch us. her, she didn't do that. She stuck with me the whole time. We were in constant communication about every week or so. And, she stuck with us. She got a higher offer, she told me, and she didn't go with them, and we closed it out. So it was really nice to work with a seller who actually like sticks to their word like that.
Yeah. I
So that
bet.
was awesome. But yeah, we contracted it on January 9th and we closed it on the 20th of June. So about 6 months from contract to close. And this one had some title issues too. I don't know if I told this story, but company had closed down. It's kind of common in our business, but there was an old deed of trust, which means there was a loan taken out on this property, and the lien release was never filed, and so I had to get in contact with this company, and the company, of course, was dissolved and then reinstated and then dissolved again.
Hmm.
So I got in contact with this dude, and he lives in Florida, and he had like sold the company apparently or whatever. And I got in contact with him, super nice guy. He just totally answered me on a cold call, and I got the right number, thankfully. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I sold that company, but I'll be happy to sign anything you need." And I was like, "Dude, thank you." And so he's totally saved my butt on that. And then
That's great.
yeah, he filed the satisfaction, same day, and we were able to close a couple weeks later. So it was a bummer for me because it was like beginning of June, and my attorney's like, "Oh, by the way, there's this deed of trust," and I'm like, "Oh, so you had 5 months, but you didn't think to run title until the 3 weeks before we're closing." So like, nice. But thankfully, this dude helped us out super quickly. But I was a bit frustrated with my closing attorney because I'm like, dude, sent this to you in January, and you didn't work on it until June. So it's like, like what's going on there? But anyways, it all worked out in the end. Happy buyer, happy seller, 5-star review from the seller, so it was just a great deal all around for us. So
Nice.
yeah, that's the story on that one. And it was my first deal, or my guy Jose's first deal that he contracted with us. So it was exciting to have him like get a bonus from his first deal way back in January. So it's awesome. But yeah, that's that's that for that one. And that was in Franklin County, Lewisburg, just for you and for anyone listening, I
Yeah.
guess. Um,
People are
but,
buying stuff out there.
but yeah, I noticed that that market is really good, and I this one campaign that I launched that got me this deal. I also have 2 other deals under contract from just one campaign. So to me, that's a very successful campaign when we have multiple contracts coming from one list. It's very good for me.
Yeah.
So that was a hot one for sure. But yeah, there's that. And then in terms of other victories this week, I was 2 for 4 on reductions. So we got 2 reductions and terminated 2, which is still a victory when you terminate deals that aren't going to work out. Save the
Yeah.
seller some time and save yourself some time. And they were both, cool about it. So that's nice. But we did successfully get 2 reductions. And so this was before my buy box was made. But one of these is a tenant occupied property that we locked up before I changed my strategy and stuff. And so we locked this one up, and it was a great deal on paper. And we always try to address the objection before the fact when we lock up tenant occupied properties in the past, where it's like, hey, we're interested to buy this property from you, but we're gonna need access. We're gonna need at least 2 times to get inside the house before we close. So are you gonna cooperate? Are your tenants gonna cooperate? Oh yeah, they always say yes. And then after the fact, this seller was like, "Oh yeah, we're not going to do that. So basically, you can't see the property, and I don't have a lease, which he agreed to send us the lease before we signed the contract, and I don't have a lease, and I don't have a rent roll or anything." So like, oh cool. So we just don't know what's inside the house, don't know if they're paying, don't know if there's even people living there. Like there could be goats living in there, like you don't even know. And so, anyways, long story short, we got a reduction because of that, because I just explained to him, he's a very nice older guy, but a little bit delusional to expect us to buy for that price with those conditions. And so, thankfully, he came down. And surprisingly, after I got the reduction and I marketed it myself with a reduced price, I got a lot of people interested. I was very surprised. A lot of people wanted this property because I very clearly outlined, I'm like, this is a situation, we're not getting inside, there's no lease, there's all this stuff that's going on. And I was getting a lot of interest. And so ended up selling it on Friday. And this dude, he's not going to see inside. He's not going to get a lease, anything. And he was totally cool with it. And I have like 3 backup buyers who really wanted it also. And I was very
Wow.
surprised. So yeah, maybe I need to rethink my tenant strategy. I don't think so. I don't think so. But this one worked out, which is nice. They don't always work out like that. But this one was in Burlington, which is kind of a hot market. So
Yeah,
I think that's
Alamance.
why it worked out. Yeah. I think that's why it worked out. And I talked with you offline about my buy box, and I think I would make exceptions for tenants in like Durham and Raleigh. Maybe
Yeah,
Burlington, probably not. I don't think I'm gonna add that on there. But for Durham and Raleigh,
Alamance. Yeah,
I'll probably make exceptions for just about anything. But in some smaller markets, I wouldn't. I'd be more strict.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that was one victory that we got that reduced and sold same week. And then same thing with our other reduction that we were successful on. We got it reduced and then sold it the next day. So it's awesome when that works out like that. And then the other two, didn't work out. We terminated those. And then it looks like I only have one more from my like previous before I changed my buy box that we locked up either with not the best circumstances or not the best price. So yeah, it looks like for this next week I only have one more like reduction call that I have to do, and then hopefully the rest of these deals will be smooth. So we'll see. But I mean, you can never avoid canceling deals, but I was at a higher clip than I'd like to be, and so I'd like to be at a much higher success rate than fallout rate going forward. So yeah, I think that's about it for me. I did make my buy box. It's kind of long. I could share it, but it's kind of like a long document. So I don't know. I guess how about if anyone's interested in listening to my buy box, I could share it on the next episode because we want to get to comments. So, but I did make that for myself going forward.
yeah. That was good to see what you did there. I definitely want to do that too. Should be on my strategic coach objectives. I think I shared with you at the top box.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's about it for me. The only challenges, like I said, are just getting these last few contracts either reduced or canceled. And then otherwise, like I said, Dispo's cranking when we get good price deals. I'm having a lot of good success with investor base and among the other strategies that I've been using to grow my buyers list. So that's been working well. And like I shared, I've noticed that I'm getting a lot of offers. They are lower, but I'm really thankful that my buyers are like making offers even when they're lower. And I've been encouraging my buyers as I've noticed that the market's softening a bit. I've been encouraging everyone like, hey man, you're not ever gonna hurt my feelings. Like I make low offers for a living. Like just shoot me your number.
Yeah.
And that's helped. So more
At
buyers are
least you
just
have
like,
a benchmark then. Yeah.
yeah, because you can't get a reduction if you don't have offers, because it doesn't feel right to me to try to reduce someone when I don't have someone lined up to
Yeah.
buy.
Because then, yeah, if you don't close it, it's not a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah, so I've been really grateful for, all the active buyers that are on my list. I seem to be getting more and more from investor base and other strategies. So that's been good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
yeah, do you
talked
want
about
to
investor base in a previous episode, but we definitely both recommend it so far. It's been good.
yeah. So do you want to pull up those comments and then we can both
Yeah.
introduce?
Let me see what I can grab here. So I've got Chief Keef 8902 on YouTube says, when sending out text with smarter contact, are you guys including reply stop to opt out, or do you guys remove that? So Jasper, what do you have on that?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that briefly. We touched on it offline, but personally, I use launch control and my dad uses smarter contact. Before, I think about 6 months ago, launch control was requiring like a double opt-in basically, where you couldn't just straight out ask sellers, like, hey, do you want to sell your house? You had to send them a very vague text and get them to reply the word yes before you could even send a follow-up text. And you also had to include the stop to opt-out language. Now in launch control, they've kind of reverted back to their old ways and loosened up a little bit. So you don't have to do that yes opt in the initial message. You can kind of just go straight out with it and ask them if they're interested in selling. And they also don't include the stop to opt out like in the text message, if that makes sense. So obviously if someone says stop, it automatically removes them from your system, puts them on the DNC, but it's no longer included in the text message, at least as of right now. This is late June 24. And they do require you still to have that language on your website. So
Right. Yeah.
I still have to have like a paragraph on my website that says, because I have like an opt-in form on there that says like you can send text messages by signing up for this. You can reply stop at any moment to opt out. So I have that, but it's not in all the outbound text messages. So hopefully that makes sense. That's my answer.
Yeah. Thanks. So we are on Smarter Contact as our primary platform. I'm just looking at my Smarter Contact dashboard. We still do have, after our initial message, we have reply stop to unsubscribe. I don't know that that's mandatory in Smarter Contact. I think it might be, but I'd have to ask my acquisitions people, honestly, to know that for sure. It's a great question. But currently, we just have the initial message, and then at the bottom it says reply stop to unsubscribe. So if the carriers are relaxing on that and launch control is saying you don't have to do it, then probably you don't have to do it. And maybe this is a holdover, or maybe Smarter Contact is being more conservative than launch control, which they do seem to be in some ways. Like, they have the national DNC list, built in, so that stuff gets taken out. Smarter Contact includes a litigator scrub when you upload lists. They scrub for litigators, included in your subscription. So I don't know if launch control does that. Do they do the national DNC and the litigators? Jasper, do you remember?
They don't do litigators for sure. They do scrub against the DNC, but
Yeah, yeah. I
no,
think everybody does the scrub against the national DNC.
they don't do litigators.
But yeah, that was cool to find out, because my lead manager asked me this week, like, hey, in direct skip, can I pay the little bit of extra for the litigator scrub? And I was like, I think launch control already does that for us. And they do, they do the litigator scrub for you. So that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now, and it does say that they do litigators, but all my lists that I upload say 00000. So I'm not sure if they actually do it,
Uh-huh.
because I feel like there's got to be one or two in there somewhere, So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. We have them when you look at our reports, we have them. We have a few litigators in there, and
yeah,
our SMS, the bulk of it is like 50% of every list or more that we upload is national DNC, gets just bitten right out of the list. And then, there's another 20% of unverifieds. And then there's miscellaneous litigator and other things that come out of there, before we end up sending out like 40% of the list that we uploaded.
yeah.
But so let's just move on. Actually, this Chief Keef 8902 gave us one other one here on a different episode. We'd love to see a video with a deeper dive on what would love to see a video with a deeper dive on what your SMS first message looks like, along with the drip campaign features. So, I mean, I guess we could do a separate video on this and just do some screen sharing. I don't think we're prepared to do that today, but we could. Oh, and this says, and kind of how your SMS platform pushes leads to Podio. So for pushing leads to Podio, we both use Zapier, I think.
Yeah.
If you have an SMS platform such as Smarter Contact or Launch Control, you get a Zapier account, which is free, and then you get a couple of free what they call zaps with that, and that's Zapier links different platforms. So you go into Zapier and you create, a link between your SMS platform and your CRM, and you can set up parameters so that the lead goes in there when you push. I mean, usually the platforms will make it fairly easy for you. I think if you go into Smarter Contact or Launch Control, you can click on there, push to CRM, and add your zap. I mean, it's something I have somebody else do. I don't do the zaps myself. I don't want to get that bogged down in tech minutia, but I think if I wanted to do it myself, it's not that hard to do, but it just takes some time. Do you have anything else on that with the pushing leads to Podio? And then we could touch on the initial messages after that.
Yeah, I mean, the pushing leads is the easiest part. So launch control walks you through it, and I mean, YouTube can walk you through it, but that's the easiest part for sure about sending text. I just use Zapier as well. But
Yeah,
they
so it's pretty
integrate,
automated, and yeah, you just have to jump in there and follow a few steps.
yeah, they integrate with pretty much every CRM. But if they don't integrate directly, you can just use Zapier. But in terms of the drips and the initial templates and stuff, I mean, I could share my screen real quick. I could just read off a couple templates. I mean, it's pretty simple. Um,
Yeah,
one thing with SMS is like whatever I tell you today or whatever we just shared is probably not going to work in a couple months. They're constantly changing their regulations, and they're constantly changing what words you can use and can't use. So if you sign up for SMS, it's great because it's very cheap. It's very simple, to get started and get up and running, and it's very it works very well. But it's always changing. So that's kind of the con of SMS, is that you always have to be adapting. And it's not like a set it and forget it channel, like maybe cold calling might be, or direct mail, or maybe PPC even. You do have to be hands-on. It has to be you or someone managing it that is hands-on.
Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, I'll just run through this real quick, just in case this is helpful, and then we can do like a separate video, or I can do a Loom or something. But here's an example of an initial message that we send to someone, and you have to include text spinners, which means you have to include multiple phrases that are named the same thing, so that they can vary your messages. But anyways, so we'll say, hey, I'm curious if you're open to a deal for your home at, we'll include the address. I'm an investor who can close quick. Any thoughts? Let me know. And then we include the company name. So it's literally that simple. That's our opening message. And then we have to include 5 variations of that exact thing. So here's another one, in that same vein, which is, hey, I noticed you have a house in the area I invest in. Are you willing to discuss a deal on it? Let me know. I hope to hear from you soon. Company name. So that's how simple our initial templates are. In terms of drips, it's pretty much the same exact thing, except you've already texted them. So you're just doing a follow-up. So like, here's one of our drips. Hey, are you still thinking about a change regarding your place at their address, and then company name? That's how simple that one is. Or just checking in. Do you have 5 minutes to chat about your house today? Company name, I have to include that. Hey, when is a good time to talk about your thoughts on your place in North Carolina? Hey, are you free to talk about your residence in North Carolina? I mean, that's just an example of some of our follow-ups. So it's really simple. And you can either build these, or you can have ChatGPT kind of help you with the templates and stuff. Or, Launch Control does have a feature where they can make you their own templates. They used to be horrible when they were going through that phase. Now they're still not the best, but they're not bad. So Launch Control will help you make your own templates, or they can make them for you. And I think these days, because they definitely want more customers, I think they do them for free. It used to be a service they charge for, but I'm pretty sure they just load templates for free for you now. So at the very least, you can have them load them in your account, and then you can edit them yourself and make them sound more like human, so you can always do it that way. But yeah, that's kind of an example of some of the templates and drips that we use. So hopefully that's helpful. And if you like some more, I could make a video showing it.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, for me, you want to try and make it conversational as much as possible and friendly, and then you are limited by the words that you can't use. And if you want a list of words you can't use, like, they're provided by Launch Control and Smarter Contact, but if you're just doing texting on your own without a SMS platform, we can probably send you a list. I think we have a list in our team drive or in our Podio that we can share
Yeah.
of, and that list is changing and evolving, as Jasper mentioned, but there's stuff you don't say, are you going to sell your property? You don't say, they're just like sale, those kinds of things. There are a few words that are just triggers for the carriers. The carriers don't want you just aggressively going after people, so that you're trying to, like, here's one I'm looking at. Hi there, checking in about your vacant land. Our group would like to know if it might be available for a deal, right? That's one of my initial messages. This is a land one, right? So we're not saying, do you want to sell your land? Because, right, you can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can pull up another. I mean,
And I
these are
don't
some,
think you can use the words like cash or offer or considering selling, I think even considering is one of the bad words. Like, there's a lot of
yeah,
words.
there's some that you wouldn't expect. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Hi, Eileen. We put the person's name in there. I noticed that you have land in blank county. Is that available? We're in the market for land in that area. So we say stuff like
Yeah.
that. So you can say available. That template's broken, but yeah. So it's, you're working your way around some words that you're not allowed to be used. Here's another one. Hi, the seller's name. Hi, Lobelia. This is, and then we have our acquisition person's name in there. We're buying empty lots in Lewisburg. Was wondering if the lot you own might be available. So it's all pretty similar stuff, like Jasper said. It's just variations, and
Yeah.
you're just trying to get the person. Basically, you're trying to get a yes or a no, right? Yes, I want to sell, or no, I don't want to sell. But at least you're getting engagement. And if you get a no, then they go and follow up. And if you get a yes, then you talk to them.
That's
So
right.
that's the bottom line. And yes or no are better than ambivalent. Like Jasper and I both really like this sales book called Go for No. You collect no's, because no's are, sellers need to say no before they can say yes. And so
Yeah.
if you get a no, it's a good thing. It just means it's a follow up, and that it's an opportunity to ask a couple of questions. Well, would you think about selling it in the future, or whatever? You can continue to talk to them about it,
Yeah.
or is this just not the right time for you? Whatever. You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, so I think we covered those questions. I think those are all the comments and questions we had on the YouTube channel so far, but feel free to comment or ask questions. We're happy to touch on stuff in our pods here, and we'll start making space at the end of the pod to answer any questions or comments so that we can help people out if possible.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I guess it's time to wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it. If we don't have any
Thanks for
more.
the comments and questions.
Yeah, appreciate you guys who are listening and watching. And thank you for the comments. Like you said, leave any comments for the next episode and we'll touch on them at the end. And yeah, I mean, that's a wrap. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. And you can reach us both on Facebook if you want to reach out directly. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode.